Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. This is episode number 65. As usual, I've got Rohan here.
Hey, good afternoon.
And today we are joined by Jayden, all the way from New Zealand. Good morning, Jayden.
Good morning. Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
This episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa. Easily and securely access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that also supports the Home Assistant project. The configuration is done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML.
Rohan, let's get straight into it, I think. This one I thought was an April Fool's joke, but it is apparently not an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, bad timing.
At first I thought that's it, like this is an epic April Fool's joke. They've gone to the extreme to get this. But no, it's for real. So Apple has purchased or acquired the Dark Sky weather service. So if you are a Home Assistant user, it's probably a good chance that at some stage you have used this weather service. I know I'm currently using this service for my weather. I don't know about you guys. So on April 1st, it was announced that they've been purchased by Apple, and I think effectively immediately Apple have removed the Dark Sky weather app from the Android Play Store.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think if you have a subscription, it will be turned off as of July 1, or end of July this year. So they're not giving much time. If you've purchased a yearly subscription, they'll give you some credit back. They'll refund you the difference. And Apple are also closing down the web API, and this is what is the real kicker for Home Assistant users, because this is what Home Assistant uses to get the weather data from the Dark Sky, and that's going down at the end of 2021.
Yeah, so again, it's one of those things where, I think we've talked about it enough, right? Just in terms of people killing services, how we feel about it, blah, blah, blah. But in a case like this, again, it is really, it's crappy, right? It's called spade a spade here. It's not it's
a dog move by Apple, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, am I shocked that, somebody like Apple did something like this? No, right? Apple has never really touted to be that, hey, we're open, whatever, right? So, I mean, it is what it is, right? But it is really crappy because Dark Sky was actually, again, I don't use it now, but I used to use it at some point in my life, and it's a great app. Right, it's a great service. It worked really well, and it's even better that they had an API to go along with it. So that's not going to be the case anymore. Hopefully, there's a few other really good ones that pop up in its place.
I think someone mentioned Wire which is available in Home Assistant.
Yep.
There's a lot of local weather services that are in Home Assistant now. I know here in Australia we've got the Bomb. Yeah. Rohan, you've got Meteo, or no, that's France maybe.
Yeah, there's a few. I think we have the government feed integrated in there as well at some point. I forget what it's called. I used to use that, and then I don't pull my weather into it anymore. But yeah, I mean, again, there are a lot of alternatives, right? So it's not. It's unfortunate because this was actually a good one.
And this was actually a featured integration that Home Assistant had. So this was one on the top page.
Yeah,
Home Assistant was happy to say we support this service. That, of course, has been changed now. So if you go to the integrations page on Home Assistant, it is no longer a featured integration. But yeah, it's just sad when something like this goes. And I think generally it's a company killing off a physical product. It's rare that we see a cloud service like this being acquired and immediately shut down.
Well, that's it.
I know we've got until end of 2021, but
right. Well, that's it. So, I mean, to me, that just gives enough time for somebody else to come up with something better. So,
yeah, I hope so.
Let's get the creatives out there. So, I mean, outside of that, let's talk about the 108 release. So, a couple of new things coming in. There's a lot of cool integration icons that are now featured in the UI. So, it's something small, but basically, so let's say, for example, if you fire up a new integration through the UI for Philips Hue, you'll see a little Philips icon in there. Again, it's not a huge, it doesn't functionally affect anything, not really, but it's a kind of nice little touch worth mentioning.
It would be nice to be able to see all like I'm imagining eventually you'll be add integration and there will be just like a wall of icons that you can click. Like that's going to be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I personally I liked having the the words there just because again, to me I don't necessarily pay attention to people's icons, stuff like that, or I may somebody changes their icon, I know their old one, and it takes me another 10 minutes to find the integration. but I mean I'm okay with either way. But yeah, again, small touch, but it's kind of nice.
There is now many more integrations that can be configured via the UI. So a whole bunch of new stuff, including Roku, Logitech, the Harmony hubs, and Ratio sprinklers, I think they are. So yeah, a whole bunch more have been added to be able to configure by the UI this release, and I'm guessing next release is just going to keep snowballing. So good to see stuff moving away from YAML. Makes it a bit easier. I know I personally love YAML, so I'm always a bit disheartened when I see the breaking changes that you can't configure stuff by YAML anymore. Hopefully this is all worth it in the end, though.
Yeah, this one's actually kind of neat. And this is just a couple of the highlights. There's actually a pretty large list. I was actually pretty surprised at how many came out all at once. So it's really nice to see that. Map panel. So now you can see a history of where a person's been. So again, mixed feelings on this one. So it is all local, right? But again, it's, does my girlfriend really want me to have a map of exactly where she's traveled through wherever? I mean, probably not.
Yeah,
it's a little bit Big Brother, but I could see the use case for it. Again, if it's like, hey, if this person's gone here, then here, then here, then do X, Y, Z. Now, I don't necessarily know that you can use that in an automation, so maybe that doesn't make sense. But I guess people want to visualize it. Sure, it's there. I mean, you could technically do that today just by scraping the. If you use like the mobile app integration, if you just scrape the GPS coordinates and pull that in every time, in theory, you could do that now without this map panel, but they just do it for you.
Yeah. I think I was speaking with someone on Discord and they had shown me their Grafana dashboard, and they were using that data in Grafana to put over like a big map of a heat map of where they'd been, right? It was crazy. It's like, wow, there is just so much you can do with this data. And obviously then it gets a bit creepy, right? Like you can see, travel times and, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, one of those things where it's sort of like, there's a lot of power. If you're a bit evil, you can do a lot of bad things with it, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of creepy things, if you have an Amazon Echo, one of the Echo shows, the Home Assistant cameras can now be displayed. So you can now ask your little lady in there, show the living room or show the front door. I actually just recently got an Echo Show, so I'm hoping that I can integrate some cameras with Home Assistant, get some nice IP cameras. And this will be a cool feature. I'd be interested to know if, being the Echo, if it requires to dial out to Amazon's cloud servers to get like a proxy of the image, or if it can go directly to the IP cam in the network. I'd be very interested to see how that works.
I would be very surprised if it was local.
I know, me too, right? Because I have the Ring Cam, and that's obviously very cloud-based. And, I would say to her, hey, little lady, show the front door. And there's, like a good 3-4 second delay before it comes up, right?
Yeah. I know they were, I don't know if they ever did it. I know they were looking at doing a lot of stuff locally as well. As an example, I forget what it's called, but the Echo that has the highest level with the HA and all that stuff.
Oh, the Pro.
Pro, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, because again, I think it's got ZigBee built in.
Yep.
So again, they have a lot of local stuff. So I think, especially after that, there is a focus on local, right? Actually, really cool is HomeKit is actually pretty much all local, right?
A lot of Google Assistant stuff is starting to go local too.
Yeah. So this, I don't know. I mean, maybe they pull it locally. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
And the ZigBee Automation, the ZHA component in Home Assistant, which is all ZigBee, can now group lights together in a ZigBee group, and it will actually add an entity to the Home Assistant. Now, this is cool I would assume that this has been in for a while, maybe it just didn't expose an entity, but the whole concept of a ZigBee group allows you to put a whole bunch of lights together, and then you can control them pretty much instantaneously at once. So it's really cool if you've got like a room with 4 lights. you can then have them all turn off and on at the same time. Really cool, actually, if you do things like flashing the lights, you can actually have them flash at all the same time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's again. So for me, I have I have very little ZigBee lights, but I have exactly two, and they're the IKEA trad free or whatever they're called. And I use them in my range hood, so in my exhaust fan, essentially in my kitchen, right? So those ones are things. So I never really have a use case for being like, okay, I want the left one off and the right one on.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like I usually want them both on or both off. So this is actually kind of handy. I don't know. Maybe Phil. Maybe like is there a big difference then compared to me saying, hey, turn them both off or turn them both on at the same time? Because that's kind of what I do now.
There is. If it's like, so for example, I have all my downlights are ZigBee, right? And so in a room, I have 6 ZigBee lights as one room. I issue a command to Home Assistant to turn them all off. It's still going one by one to each light to turn them off.
Right.
And so as they all turn off, one light in the corner might turn off before the other light in the opposite corner or something like that. They're not going to be exactly to the second all off at the same time. However, when they're grouped, you're pretty much guaranteed that they will all go off at pretty much near the same time. It's very, it's a much more natural experience.
Fair. So it's more for the experience, less about the actual function about it.
Correct. Like you're still doing the same thing, right? If you've got 6 lights in a group, then if you still turned each 6, if you put them in 6 lights all off and on, you're all going to end up in the same state.
Right.
It just happens. It's a lot more user-friendly for it to happen all at once.
Okay, that makes sense. Also something cool. So if you use Docker, like I do, you should see a performance increase, hopefully. So they've made the Docker core container basically utilize memory and resources a lot better and a lot more efficiently. So hopefully that means it translates to a better performance overall, right? Which is kind of nice to see. And if you're running Home Assistant Core on Has.io, I would assume that Has.io part of, or the Home Assistant Core part of that Has.io would get a nice boost as well. Again, I would assume so. I don't know. Obviously, that's outside of the Has.io supervisor itself. So, but yeah, I mean that's kind of always good to see faster,
especially like on a Raspberry Pi, right? Like anything you can squeeze out of that, anything extra, that'd be well useful.
I'm starting to because I'm running on my setup on a Raspberry Pi. I'm also starting to see a little bit of the limits that I'm hitting as well. So it'd be good for a bit more performance.
Yeah. It's
even just like a little bit, right? We'll just add that little bit. Like you might get another 2 or 3 components be able to integrate.
Yeah.
Eventually you might have to move over, but.
Yeah, or even it's funny because I don't know why this is a source of anxiety for me, but like every time if I ever update or whatever reboot my Home Assistant instance for whatever reason, it's always like, okay, is it going to be up? Is anybody in the house, are they going to be like, hey, turn on this light or turn off this light while my container is still spinning up? So it's the silliest point of anxiety, but.
All right, another cool Tesla integration this time is the Tesla Powerwall. So when you enable this integration, there will be binary sensors to let you know if the grid power is offline. And there's also various energy and consumption sensors that you can add to those nice little Grafana dashboards for you.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice. You can have some notifications and stuff to say, I think it was John that we were talking to, who's got notifications when it goes to solar power versus I guess shore power.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool.
And it'd be cool, like for automations, if you did automations, you could have, if power's out, turn off, maybe the fridge, cut power to the fridge or anything that's going to really take down the battery quickly and get as much power out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or vice versa. If you want to
shut everything else off, but leave the fridge. Yeah,
well, exactly. If you want to get charged less during whenever your Powerwall isn't drawing up power, probably not the best strategy. But I mean, hey, people have their use cases, right? So. Philips Hue now supports button press events. If you're using the integration with the Hue Hub, anytime you press the button, whatever, you can actually see that as an event coming in. So from whatever ZigBee buttons you have or Hue buttons you have that are linked in the gateway. So Jayden,
yeah,
let's talk about you, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long you've been using Home Assistant, what got you into it, that kind of stuff.
So I've been using Home Assistant since like March, April last year, 2019.
Okay.
I remember because it was around the 0.90 release, and it was very confusing to install it at that time because I was installing it on Raspberry Pi and there was conflicting tutorials because at the time I thought I wanted to do it with Raspbian or whatever the OS was.
Yeah, the Raspberry. Yeah, Raspbian. Yep.
Because all the tutorials I was seeing had a command line, and then when I'd installed Hasso, I wasn't getting the right command line.
Yeah.
But eventually I figured it out.
and now you're here.
Now I'm here. So before that, we'd had a couple of Alexa units in the house. Dad bought himself one as a Christmas present.
That's awesome.
Nice.
But nothing really before that, I can't remember.
Okay, that's kind of cool. So what was the big thing that made you want to go into it? Like why was it just like a, hey, this is kind of cool, shiny thing, or were you kind of like, hey, this is kind of what I want to get into and do some stuff around it? And
yeah, I was quite interested in it because of one used to put my Raspberry Pi to because it was just sitting around collecting dust.
Yeah.
There wasn't one major integrational device that I can think of, but just the little things around the house are good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what sort of got you into using Home Assistant and home automation in general?
Well, I'm just interested in technology, so cool to see where things can go next. Like I was always hearing about, you can do this cool stuff with Alexa, or you can do this cool stuff with other things, and I was interested to see what could happen.
Oh, that's wicked. It's cool. I'm actually looking at your blog right now, and I'm looking at a deck that you built.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool project.
Yeah, that's really neat. So you've got lighting all inbuilt within the deck and everything. We'll post a link to the show notes. And this is really nicely done. So I want to get my. I've been saying this for like 2 years now, but I want to do my backyard. We've decided, especially after the girlfriend's moved in, we've decided this is happening this year. So especially if we're going to sit in isolation, might as well sit outside when it's nice out.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, just make sure you try and keep your LEDs in one long strip because it is a real pain to try and cut and resolder to waterproof LED strips.
Yeah, interesting. So actually, I'd love to pick your brain on this. So I have heard that if your LED strips are too long, you start losing power down the strip.
Right.
So did you run into any of those kind of issues or anything?
We're not seeing any issues because along the back wall we're driving 10 meters in a line.
Okay.
On the back wall of the deck. I'm not seeing any visible light dropping in those, but they are just, they're not color changing or anything. They're just, you put in 12 volts to them and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. So how are you driving a lot of that? Are you using any controllers, whatever?
So they're driven by 12 volt power supplies and we're switching the high voltage side of them with a 4-channel Sonoff device that I flashed with Tasmoda.
Okay.
So that's what I've got to drive them.
That's really cool. And it's been working well and everything so far, eh?
Yeah, it works perfectly. Got another blog post about how they're wired to come on at sunset if occupation's on, and that's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Always gets people looking out and saying, "Oh, it's sunset."
That's it's funny, right? Because it's always those indicators going. Like for me, all of my lights inside, a whole bunch of my lights inside turn on just like 45 minutes before sunset or whatever, and it's like, oh man, now it's going to be dark in the next 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
What do you use for presents? Like, how do you know who's home?
Well, the only presents I'm using is just the network scanning one, not using anything special installed on the phones or router or anything.
Yep.
Because it's the easiest to set up. You don't even have to bother the person to install something. So.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Once you know their MAC address, then that's it, right? You know when they're home.
Yeah.
That's cool. How many people utilize your smart technologies?
About 3 of us come and go from the house from time to time. I'm not always there as well.
Yeah. So I guess using the network mapping, I guess, makes sense for you, especially then, right? So
yeah,
to say, based on whatever, it's especially if there's a dynamic environment. Do you find that it like reduces your like phone? I'm guessing you're checking your phone or pinging your phone, or whatever. Are you? Do you find that it like kills your battery or anything like that?
I haven't noticed any drastic battery decrease on the network since I put it on, so I don't think it's having as much of a impact as doing GPS-based one could.
Right.
Because that's what really drains my phone battery, I notice whenever I'm using GPS.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you using like the Nmap scanner or something, or have you got like a
That's the
with the
integration.
router? Yep.
No, it's the Nmap one. I only have the ISP router.
Yep. Because I think, Ryan, I know I use the ASUS integration for mine, and because it's direct, like it's talking to the router, right? So there's no additional battery drain because the router knows who's connected and who's not connected. So I'm like getting the list of connected devices from that, as opposed to going out and dialing all my phones, if that makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, Nmap, I'm guessing it would just do a scan of what it can find, and it would eventually have to pick up on a phone, which is why they have the delay off. Because if your phone is asleep, like an iPhone, when you do a scan in that interval, it may be offline. It might be sleeping in that time.
Yeah, I have noticed that I've had to fiddle a little bit with the settings in my configuration to make devices not drop on and off their presence whenever I'm at home.
Right.
Yeah, and it's strange because like an Android phone might be better than an iOS phone, and then you might get a device in like a computer or something that you want to track that might be another ball game that might always be on or might always be off. So it's that constant tinkering with that number.
It is good though, having it based on MAC addresses, because I have been able to set up, hey, send me a notification if my NAS goes offline, and there's no way I would have been able to install any other kind of tracking on that.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
How are you driving your notifications?
I'm just using the built-in push service for the Android and iOS apps.
Okay, so you're using the native apps then?
Yeah, I was using that process where you did the native HTML notifications for Android, but then the Android app got released, and that made it so much easier than having to go through that big process of setting them up.
Yeah,
totally right. Like, who's got like? It's that whole conundrum. Like, I could spend time setting it up the way I want it to, or I could just do it this way. A couple of lines of YAML and it's done.
Yeah, definitely much easier.
Yeah. Are you doing any other automations around the house, or?
One of my other most used devices that I implemented was just a simple ESP8266 D1 Mini.
Okay.
So when we built the house, we wired up a bunch of infrared sensors throughout the house to run back to the entertainment center. So that if you have the remote for the amplifier, you can change the volume. And I just wired the D1 Mini into the sensor port of the splitter block for that, which allows me over MQTT to control the radio and the DVD player and anything else in that stack. So
that's really cool.
One that gets used the most is when the Samsung TV comes online, turn on the amplifier and other stuff related to it. So you don't have to pick up another remote.
Yeah. How responsive is that in terms of if you turn the TV on, how long will it take for it to know that TV's on to change the inputs?
It definitely varies. The Samsung TV integration is definitely the pain point with that one. You can usually get pretty reliable turning on you turn the TV on and like a couple seconds later the amplifier will turn on, but it's much more dodgy when you turn the TV off.
Yes.
I'll get random false states, like I'll turn it off, you'll hear the amplifier go off, a couple seconds later it turns back on again and back off, so there's definitely something weird going on.
Are you using the Nmap to scan for the TV on the network, or is it something else?
It was originally just the Samsung TV component that they had, and then I changed to a custom one from GitHub through the hack store, but neither of them seem to have fixed the issue.
That's a bugger. Samsung TVs are very fragmented in their capabilities. I know I have an old Samsung Smart TV, and none of the it connects to the network. It has apps on it, Netflix, Plex, and all that, but none of the integrations with Home Assistant are compatible because the software on it is so old. So it's very hit and miss, unfortunately, when it's set with a Samsung TV.
Yeah, it'd be a lot nicer if Samsung ran something standard like Android TV.
Yeah, but even then, so you'd think Android TV is standard, right? But I purchased an Android TV for my in-laws, and it was just a no frills branded one, and it sucks. You'd think you can't there was an issue installing Netflix on it. You'd think it'd all be standard. It's not. It really depends on who the manufacturer of the panel is as well.
Right, so sounds like just Android phones problem as well with it not being standard.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Sounds like just Android anything in general.
Yeah.
So are you using any like the smart home ecosystem stuff, like Philips Hue or LifeX or anything like that? Or are you only doing like ESP stuff?
Well, just got one ESP at the moment. So apart from our Alexa devices, we haven't really had much other smart home stuff in the house because we just haven't bought it because it's quite pricey over here in New Zealand for that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm looking into doing some of the ZigBee switches from Sonoff when they come.
Oh, nice. With the Sonoff stuff, how are you? I know here in Australia, the regulations are pretty extreme. I'm assuming that we share a lot of the standards with New Zealand. Are you worried about not, standards and safety and stuff using Sonoff devices?
I am a little worried, but so at the moment we've only got the one Sonoff which is controlling the deck lights, and that's outside. So at the moment I'm not too worried about that, but I'd be more worried if it was inside or in a place that could easily get knocked around.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they seem like the wires could... A little bit of the design seems like the wires could come loose a little.
Yeah, you gotta be... yeah, that can be pretty bad.
Yeah. Could end up being pretty bad.
Yeah. It's the problem is for that price point, though, you don't get a whole lot, right? There's not a whole lot of people, rather, that are working at that price point.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and
so you're still running on the Raspberry Pi? Like you haven't moved away to other hardware yet?
Yeah, I'm still running on a Raspberry Pi 3B, just that I've had for a couple years now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard people talk about having their SD cards die on them.
Yeah.
I haven't had this issue myself.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely starting to get a little worried about it. I lost an update on it. It was around 0.96 or 0.97, but it wasn't related to the SD card. When they deprecated a Python version, the Home Assistant community store disappeared and never came back, and then I tried to reboot and it never came back up.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what did you end up doing? Did you end up rebuilding it, or did you end up, or just leave it, or?
Yeah, I ended up rebuilding, just reconfiguring everything because I still didn't have too much configured at that point. And then after that, I set up automatic backups.
Yeah. That's how you learn real quick to start backing up your stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Real good when there's an integration that can do it automatically to Google Drive.
Yeah. Oh, so is that what you use? You just use the Google Drive?
Yeah, I use one of those. It's pretty easy.
Perfect.
So what sort of SD card are you running? Like, I'm guessing you're not doing any heavy logging or Grafanaing or anything like that to keep your SD card.
No, I'm not really doing any heavy logging, but I'm actually running quite a small SD card in it. I think it's only 8 or 16 gigabytes.
Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's just one that I had lying around, so it's definitely not suited for the task. And I thought I'd run into it. I thought I'd run into its storage capacity limits trying to install ESP Home.
Yeah.
Because the container, when I tried to run integration, it would say Docker container error 404, container not found. But thankfully it wasn't a storage error, it was just some other one where it didn't download properly.
That's interesting. So I'm guessing you're just using are you using a Samsung SD card, or is it just like a No Frills brand that you just had lying around?
A No Frills brand one, literally. I've got micro SD cards lying around that I've been using that probably came from a touristy place where they gave us photos on them.
Yeah, it's especially if you're doing a lot of the logging and a lot of the recorder functions and stuff as well. You definitely want a good card. I know quite a few people have looked at even can they offload that to an external hard drive, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's because Home Assistant itself doesn't hit the card too heavily. It's those functions within Home Assistant that do.
Well, remember Hass.io, like Pascal was saying that they make a lot of the volumes that Hass.io uses, or Home Assistant Core uses now in Hass.io, read-only, so that it can't actually write and burn the SD card.
Yeah.
In case there is something like some random system event that wants to write a log somewhere, it can't because it's read-only.
Yeah, exactly. And that it's just a property of SD cards, right? At the end of the day, is they die, as morbid as that sounds. But I mean, a good SD card will go a long way, but I mean, listen, if yours is working for you, great. Right. So.
Oh yeah, at least the Home Assistant hasn't killed the SD card, but it did kill my NAS.
Did it? Oh, really? Like it's just
Well,
How?
it didn't directly kill my NAS, but it's a bit of a tale of woe from building the deck. We were flipping breaker switches to turn off the power where we're going to install the Sonoff, and we had a NAS plugged into one of the ones that we flipped off, and we must have caught it at just the wrong time, and we killed it.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Were you able to rebuild it or rebuild the data or no?
Yeah, we were able to get the data back.
Okay.
Just the controller board for it, something went wrong.
Ooh. Yeah, that's...
What sort of NAS is it?
Well, it was a Western Digital one. So now it was only a 1 bay one with it pre-installed, but now I've managed to get a Synology one, so hopefully I can get a redundant drive in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's my biggest... I'm running a Synology, and my biggest concern is that one day it's just not going to boot up. And I have 5 hard drives all rated, so, the hard drives are fine. But if the Synology unit itself stuffs up, I'm going to have to buy like a whole other NAS just to recover the data off it, right? So
yeah,
that's my biggest worry.
I actually probably about 6 months ago, I was like, okay, I got to start backing up because I did have my NAS and it was being backed up and stuff, and it was because I had a NAS from when I was younger, that when I was living with my parents, that I just left there at their place. And then when I moved into my place a few years ago, I got another NAS. So I've been doing like a replication between theirs. So theirs files also back up into like a small volume in mine, and vice versa. But it's like, same time, like I need something a little better than this, right? We're between them and I'm still on the same power grid, same or whatever. If there's exactly what you said, Jayden, which is if you hit it at the wrong time, and let's say mine's writing and theirs is writing, boom, both are gone. So I've been doing a cloud backup service and trying to do that. So
yeah, it definitely scares you a bit during thunderstorms.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
It's especially in a single drive. It's
pretty risky,
pretty bad. Yeah.
Living on the edge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So tell us a bit about like your standard home. So you get home, phone detects that you're on the network, or the network detects that your phone's on joined. What sort of automations kick off? Have you gone like anything cool that's just for you, or anything that the people in the home are enjoying about the smart home?
Yeah, so I use just like most people, I assume, input booleans to track the occupation. So obviously, once you get home, that turns on, and then whenever it turns on, I get it to just turn the radio on. So a couple of calls there. So I use the infrared thing to turn on the amplifier, change it to the right input, and then tell the Amazon Echo unit to start playing the radio.
Ah, that's cool. Yeah,
that's kind of neat. Is there? Do you have an override for like when you come home at like 3 a.m. after and wake everybody up? Or
haven't had that at the moment. Haven't had that happen yet.
Okay, fair enough.
I think we'll cross that if it happens.
Yeah,
that's when you'll be up at 4 a.m. fixing that automation before you forget.
Yeah, that's right. It's this is how the best automations are made. So, but yeah, that's awesome.
I'm working on getting our garage doors set up in Home Assistant at the moment.
Yeah.
They're a bit of the relay board to control them is working perfectly, but we're getting weird like state issues with the sensors that we're using.
Okay.
So you'll put the garage door up, and before I implemented the debounce, the garage door sensor would go on, off, on, off, on, off, while the garage door was going up or down.
Oh, wow. That's, yeah, that can be bad.
Yeah, so even after like putting a super long debounce delay in the ESP home config, it's still like you'll notice that they change funny, but it's just something to get doing.
So what are you using to do? So have you got like a special garage door unit that you can tap into, or using a kit from somewhere?
No, we've just got standard garage doors, just nothing fancy about them. But we've got 4-core alarm cable running to them, so there's 2 cores left over to put a sensor onto.
Okay.
So we had reed magnet sensors on the doors, and we thought maybe the metal in the door was making the sensor go funny, but we replaced them with limit switches, and we still get this funny error. So something about the cable itself must have gone wrong.
Interesting.
And so then you're sending that data back to what? Like to Home Assistant somehow?
Yeah, just back to Home Assistant with the ESP Home integration.
Okay, nice. And so does the ESP Home, like they obviously got an ESP unit somewhere, is that in the garage, on the garage door? Or
It's unfortunately sits up in the ceiling, which is...
Right.
So our house, we have the two garage doors down in the basement, and then we have the alarm cables run from the garage doors all the way up into the ceiling. So I think it's a possibility that over such long distance that the ESP's pins are just losing voltage or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially since it's low voltage, right?
Yeah. So I'm guessing that the physical location of the ESP is not in the garage, it's where the end of those cables are.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know how you end up solving it, or what ends up happening, right? So
yeah, it'll be written up in a blog post when I eventually get around to it.
There you go, perfect. So
hey, at least quarantine's given me a reason to do that.
Exactly. It's but I gotta love the fact that every part of this you're kind of DIYing it, right?
Only way to keep the budget.
Yeah, makes sense, right? Makes sense. But hopefully you're learning a lot doing that too.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the wonderful part of Home Assistant, since everything can be done on a budget. So there's a low entry point for anyone wanting to join.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. So,
and it's the breadth, right? Like you can have someone that wants to do the high end stuff with, go out and just buy a kit and it's all done for you. Or if you don't want to do that, you can do it yourself, and it supports all of it in between as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
So have you got any future plans on what you want to eventually be able to automate? Like let's say you just had a whole bunch of ESP homes delivered and you were just in quarantine for the next 6 months, what would you automate if you could?
Oh, I'm not sure in terms of just having the ESP homes, but I definitely want to do more ZigBee stuff to try and offload from the Wi-Fi router.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just because we see issues with that occasionally with the just overloading in general. You can't help. People are always going to join more phones to the network.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're using the ISP router, right? That's got to have limitations.
Yeah, it's really not a great router. Like, I can't even create separate SSIDs on it, so
Yeah.
definitely feeling a bit of pain there.
Yeah.
But it would be really nice because ZigBee would also allow me to, if the router or anything does fail, it would just be a bit of backup for stuff around the house. So I'd like to have some ZigBee light switches, or maybe something on a different communication protocol for our light switches around the house for the outside lights.
Yeah, so I mean, you're talking about like in case the router or whatever, for whatever reason, the router dies or something like that, you're not hosed where it's, you can still turn on and off your lights, you can still do all that stuff.
Yeah, still do the mission critical stuff.
Yeah.
IKEA's got some pretty cheap ZigBee stuff. You can probably get your hands on too, I think. I want to get some of those the ZigBee remote controls that they've got, like the little turn dials that they've got for their speakers.
Yeah,
they look cool.
The IKEA stuff, ZigBee IKEA stuff, always makes me so jealous because we don't have any IKEA stores here in New Zealand. So
no, I didn't realize that.
You're joking. Oh
no, we're still waiting on them to arrive. So it'd be really nice if they could hurry up. But
well, I mean, Sydney's only 5 hours by plane, so just pop over. We have the same, plugs and sockets, same voltage, so compatible.
That's right. And if you ever need any furniture, just you might have to pay a little bit of freight for it. So.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
That's right.
That's interesting that you can't get IKEA in New Zealand, because I know you've even got like the hardware store, Bunnings and all that. So I thought they would just done Australia and New Zealand at the same time. Yeah,
we've got Bunnings here, but they've been selling some Grid Connect system or whatever they're advertising now. It seems to be like their entry into the smart home market, but it doesn't seem to be Home Assistant compatible as far as I know.
I think it is. It's I think they're all 2-year based.
Oh, if they're 2-year based, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Still a little overpriced.
Yes, well, unfortunately, I think over here we have the Arlec. They've got the brand Arlec has got a whole bunch of smart home stuff now, and that's all Tuya based. So they've got like fans, light switches, globes, and all that. And it's, their entry point into the smart home stuff. But once again, it's all Tuya based. And if you do some Googling around, I'm sure you'll find people that have been able to flash Tasmota or Tuya onto whatever it is onto it. But yeah, it's all Wi-Fi based though, which is what you want to get off.
Yeah, and just with being Wi-Fi based, like it's always confusing. Why don't the smart these big giants use the other protocols? Because then you have a much easier setup, I reckon, instead of having to depend on the customer's router.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it also comes down to cost, right? Wi-Fi is for like a Wi-Fi chip is probably cheaper than a ZigBee.
Yeah, but the proof, because I'm using ESP8266s and they're way cheaper, so...
Yeah, well, exactly, right? So...
Yeah.
From a consumer point of view, it's, I have Wi-Fi at home. That will work with me. That'll work on our Wi-Fi.
Right. You don't need any other hubs. You don't need anything else too, right?
Yeah.
So... Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even think of that part because I was like, yeah, I've got a hub. It'll work, right? But yeah,
yeah, the hubs definitely cause a problem.
Yeah. So,
I've got one little complaint with the Home Assistant core actually. To close off with. I'm not sure if it affects people that are running more on Docker setups or anything other than a Raspberry Pi. But the update button for updating the Home Assistant core, like from 107 to 108, for instance, it doesn't seem to have much feedback on it. So, like, if I'll click it and then it will think and sit, and then it will fade away, and then I get no indication as to whether it's actually updating or not. Because I've had to click it several times in the past to get it to update, and that's always been a little bit mysterious as to whether it's updating or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought it had am I thinking of something else? I thought it had like the spinner, but yeah, there's no feedback in terms of is it actually doing something.
Yeah, like even just a notification down in the corner saying Home Assistant is now updating. Right.
I'm wondering if it's because it's behind the scenes, it's all Docker, right? So there might be a Docker pool going on, or if there's something like that, maybe they can't tap into that yet, but. I think that's a valid reason.
Yeah. I know some of the devs listen to the show, so let's see.
Let's see.
Well, Jayden, thank you so much for coming on this morning and sharing your Home Assistant journey with us. We'll leave links to your blog in our show notes where people can check out, and we've now added some extra blogs that you'll need to add in for the future as well, so make sure you do them.
That's right.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
So, thanks, Jayden.
Cheers.
Thanks.
If you want to share your Home Assistant journey or come on as a guest, reach out to us at feedback@hasspodcast.io. That's HASS podcast.io.
The Home Assistant podcast is hosted by Phil Hawthorne and myself, Rohan Karamandi. For links to topics that we discussed today, check out our show notes on hasspodcast.io.